Deebo had 5 targets against Buffalo. He had 3 against Chicago. He had 2 receptions for 22 yards against the Bears this weekend. And then today he tweeted out, not struggling at all, just not getting the ball. He's averaging 2.5 yards per carry on running plays for the season. So what he did in this game is exactly what he did in for the bulk of the season, which is 2.5 yards per carry. He's clearly lost a step. He's got build up speed, so you can use him as a return man, but he doesn't have that first or second step quickness, no agility like he used to have. If it was me, John, I would use Deebo more as a returner, kick returner, punt returner, and start to use Cowing, who I think is atrocious as a punt returner. Use him from scrimmage a little bit more because he seems so uncertain of himself as a return man. So that's what I'd use. That's what I would do for the rest of this year. Deebo's your special teamer and maybe a couple select plays. Cowing, I'm using from scrimmage down the field, throwing it to him. But John, what do you do? What do you do with Deebo? What should the Niners do with him? How would you utilize him? In your mind, has he lost a step? Do the Niners bring him back in 2025, or is this a wrap on Deebo in San Francisco?
He has no chance to come back. 0.0. You can't pay this guy this kind of money when Brock Purdy gets what he's going to get. And it's not going to accelerate the cap right away. We know how this all works. It gets elongated over 6 or 7 years. And so the number ramps up. But Deebo's making over $23 million. And if you look at the roster and who they're going to lose next year, if I told you the receiver core was Jawan Jennings, who looks like a 1, and Brandon Ayuk comes back, and Ricky Pearsall you drafted in the first round, so he's going to be your slot guy, or he can play outside, and Jawan could be in the slot, whatever you want to do, and you still got Kittle, and then we just talked about the stable of running backs. How does Deebo fit in there? Deebo's not better than any of those guys. I expect Pearsall to take a big jump next year when he's not getting shot at and not having injuries in training camp. And for everybody who wants to complain about Pearsall, before you do that, look, it takes a minute too for a lot of wide receivers in this league. I'm not worried about Pearsall. You hit it right on the head on Deebo. And I don't know if this is a running back thing because he played so hard and broke so many tackles. And they used him, of course, and they had the injuries in 2021 when they used him in the backfield as much as they did. It's almost like, and he is built like a running back that, all of a sudden he's dead at 27 or his legs are dead at 27. That's kind of what Deebo is at the receiver position because he's broken so many tackles and given so much and had so many injuries. And that's just how he is. That he's done. Now, somebody's going to pick him up, but again, you're a scout. You know this. Deebo's never run good routes. It's get me the ball. I'll break some tackles. It's run after the catch, yak rack, whatever you want to call it. And he's at the point in his career where he doesn't have the juice. And if Deebo doesn't have the juice in his legs, what's going to happen? There are certain players in all of sports that are going to age gracefully because it's not based on all athleticism. Deebo is a power forward playing wide receiver. And what's happened is his physicality has left him, and he can't do what he used to do. He doesn't have the burst. He doesn't have the power. He doesn't have any of it. So if Deebo was back next year, I would be absolutely positively shocked. And I give him a ton of credit because he knows, and he knew at the beginning of the season, once they signed Ayuk, that this type of team was not going to put all those resources into the receiver position, but Deebo's making it easy. And then for him to come out and say, I'm not getting the ball, dude, Brock Purdy's not playing favorites here, man. And Brandon Ayuk ain't around, and Ricky Pearsall isn't overly effective. He had to go to Jennings. He had to go to Garendo. He had to go to Kittle because those were the guys that were open. Brock Purdy's not back there going, I can't get it to Deebo. Deebo, dude, you ain't open, man. Started with Kansas City in the Super Bowl where they just locked you down, and it's been all season long. And it's not like they're putting the best corner on you, Deebo. He's not open. He's not available. I mean, more than he's getting the ball, I'll give him that. But Deebo Samuel is not the dynamic player and hasn't been all season long, at least to me.
No, I mean, he can't get to the edge. I mean,
can't at all.
Those run plays that used to go for like 20 yards are going for 2 yards, and sometimes they're going for negative yards.
Put some of that on Kyle too, and I love Kyle, and I'm not advocating in any way, shape, or form that he gets fired. I think it's stupid and hilarious. And you were in the press conference getting traded to Chicago. Florio's such a jackass. He has no insight into this organization, so he makes stuff up. Like, I'm sure he has contacts all over the league. He doesn't hear. And so from Brady to Rodgers to this to that, he's always wrong when it comes to the 49ers. And this was just a pie in the sky, throw it against the wall, get some clicks kind of a thing. And then Cowherd picked it up. and then it had a life of its own, and Kyle had to say, no, I'm not going anywhere. But back to Deebo. Look, I like the way that Deebo's handled all this kind of stuff, but he's just not what he was, and the organization's going to have to move on from him. And you brought up a great point. I don't know if they'd have the guts to do it, but Deebo's a net negative on the field right now. And his best asset, you're right, he had a couple of returns. One was called back a few games ago. He's a really good kick returner. And really, the 49ers need that. So it's like, hey, by the way, you just said you're not getting looks. We got news for you. You're not going to get any looks from the bench, and we're going to use you on special teams. They got to play him. I get that. But, man, he's just not effective. And 5 carries for 13 yards. The reason I brought up Kyle is there's no creativity in the way that he's used either. No creativity whatsoever. The same plays that Deebo's been running from the backfield, they've been running for 3 years, and the opposition is like, Kyle, we know what you're going to do here. That's not helping Deebo much.
Well, I mean, it's great to have a couple of wrinkles, but when you're just going to repeat those wrinkles over a 3 or 4 year period, people start to clue in.
Got that thing locked on him.
Yeah, I mean, one of the, so he put out on Twitter, hey, I'm working, whatever. I'm trying to, what did he say? Not struggling at all, just not getting the ball. Somebody said, when he put out there on Twitter, someone said he leads the team in drops, he's struggling. And Deebo responded to that by saying, not struggling at all, just not getting the ball. Kittle made that claim last week and was right. Deebo, I think, is struggling and isn't the same player that he was. But, I'd rather a player not feel that he's struggling and feel like the ball hasn't come his way than feel like he's struggling, like he's regressing, because you lose confidence sometimes. But whatever, I mean, I need to see less of Deebo running, because it's only amounting to about 2.5 yards a pop, and it's not good enough.
Well, Larry,
I really don't want to hear him complaining on Twitter after the 49ers won a game in the middle of a short week when, he should have absolutely no time to do anything but heal, watch film, rest up, and get ready. And he's hitting Twitter going, hey, I'm not getting the ball. It's like, dude, is that being a leader? Is that being a leader on the team? You've already put your hands on the long snapper. You went at the kicker and told him to lock in. You threw stones when you live in a glass house. And now you're tweeting out after a victory that you're not getting the ball. Who's that aimed at? Kyle? Brock? I mean,
it's never good. And I love it because, we're part of the media. So when he throws stuff around, it gives us stuff to talk about. But I would just have to ask, who does that help? Like, we're not going to, the media, it's not a democracy. Hey, the media has voted and the fans have voted and they say Deebo Samuel gets the ball more. Okay, Kyle, that's what you got to do. Like, hey, Deebo, you got a problem? You have a relationship with Kyle that's really, really good. Just walk in and say, man, I think I could be utilized more. He's the czar. So the guy who's going to make the decision on whether you get the ball more or whether they're going to feature you in a certain game, then that's Kyle Shanahan. It's not the media. It's not a democracy. We don't vote on if you get the ball more. So go to the head coach and say, look, I think I should get the ball more. And you know what Kyle's going to do? Hey, Deebo, let's sit down and watch the film, shall we? Because Kyle Shanahan, especially at this point of the season where they are beyond desperate to win football games and to put the ball into the end zone, you think that Kyle Shanahan's looking at it going, I guess we just won't feature Deebo. He's trying, but I just don't think, and you said this at the beginning of this, I just don't think he's capable of doing it, at least right now. Maybe he has an injury we don't know about. Whatever the case may be, he's not as explosive. He's not breaking tackles. It's pretty obvious when he's in certain formations what they're going to do. The defense clearly has him figured out. And then in terms of his route running, it's never been good. And teams know they don't even have to put the best corner on him. That's for Juwan Jennings. They know that he's not going to do anything that way. It's going to be short stuff, crossing routes, things to get the ball in his hands. And then he's going to try to run after the catch and break tackles. And at this point, he hasn't been able to do that.
No, and I feel like what we're seeing, he's not hurt or diminished. This is what age does to you after a while. And I did a video on this about a week or 10 days ago. If you go look, Deebo doesn't run around you; he runs through you. If you look in history at all the players that run through you, from Jerome Bettis to Larry Johnson to Earl Campbell to you name it, a lot of running backs. But the guys who run through you typically are done at 28 or 29. He's 28. So it's like, you know what? The idea that, oh my God, you're saying that Deebo could be done. History tells us that the backs and the offensive skill position guys who try to run through people typically are done by 28 or 29. And so it's not crazy that he could be done.